Hello, my name is Jonathan Robinson. I'm going to go over how to use a voltmeter today. Let's go over the meter and its specific buttons that you're going to have to take note of. Over here you've got direct current and alternating current depending on whether you're working on a vehicle or an on an automobile. You're going to use this. You also have your range button, which is to test your range. I'll show you that, or change your range input. I'll show you that in a second. And then you also have your selector switch here to change your different modes, such as testing for voltage, testing for resistance in ohms, and testing the amperage of a system. To set up for a voltage drop test, you're going to want to go ahead and take your red lead, and you're going to connect it into this diode right here, this connector. You use this side to check for voltage checks and resistance checks. Then you take your black, your common, go ahead and throw it in its reciprocal. And then you turn your selector switch to volts to do a voltage reading. This is how you do voltage drop checks or check for all available voltage. So in order to test for resistance, you're going to go ahead and leave your leads connected the same exact way. You're going to want to make sure that the part you are testing for resistance is completely disconnected from any type of power in the system. And you're going to go ahead and set your selector switch to read ohms. If you want to test for amperage, you're going to have to set up the leads in a little bit of a different way. You're going to take your black and still keep that in common. But when you're testing for amperage, you want to make sure that you're using a fused connection on your multimeter. The reason being is when you're testing amperage, you have to keep both of your leads in conjunction in the system, meaning your black has to be in your ground, and you disconnect the powered wire and use the powered wire to test with your positive lead, thus completing a circuit. So we've gone ahead and we've downloaded the wiring diagram for this vehicle here, and using the wiring diagram we've gone ahead and located the proper tail light. You see that you've got a red wire with a blue tracer leading into the relay, which houses all of your different bulbs, which traces back to a ground, just like the diagram. So while diagnosing this tail lamp, we had an issue in which the tail lamp wasn't turning on. So we traced the wiring diagram all the way back to the fuse box, which is in the front left portion of the engine bay. We checked our fuses and found that not only was it a 5 amp fuse where it was supposed to be a 10 amp, but the fuse is also blown. Alright, we're going to use the voltmeter to check for all available voltage in a battery. So you're going to want to make sure that your negative lead or your grounding lead is in your common, that your red lead is in set up to check for voltage. Make sure you take your red, go ahead and touch it to the powered side, and use your black lead to check for the ground. And you will see now that the battery's current available voltage is 12.35 volts. So we're going to go ahead and use our DVOM to test resistance of the system. You can see that we have the DVOM set to read ohmage. Now you can see we're going to take our two leads and just contact them without touching the two leads together to the back of the plate, which will give you an ohmage reading. The resistance of this light bulb is between 0.5 and 0.6 ohms. Alright. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to test for amperage in the system. To do this, you need to make sure the system's powered on and that the load that you are trying to test is disconnected. You're going to take your red lead, well, one thing on the red lead, make sure your red lead is always through your amped connector in the voltmeter. Take your red lead, input it to where the power is coming from the system. Then you use your black lead to complete the circuit and give power to the light, which will give you your amperage reading. Alright, so we're about to do a voltage drop test. To do a voltage drop test, you want to make sure that your red lead's plugged into the voltage, your black lead's plugged into your common. You're going to take your red lead, plug that into the power side, and you're going to take your black lead and find a common on your load or whatever you're trying to test, and you should get a reading.